It doesn't matter what your modality is. It doesn't matter what your business is, because it's inclusive. So it's getting somebody to come back. It's getting somebody to implement the change by the way that you speak, the inclusive language that you use, and by really getting them to think forward, to project forward, to future pace. And that means that you get this really holistic look at them and their lives and how you can help them. Hello and welcome. Mentoring with Geraldine is a bite-sized practitioner podcast for naturopaths, nutritionists, herbalists, and practitioners. This podcast responds directly to your needs, the needs of the practicing natural therapist. With interviews, herbal discussions, something business and something clinical each week, you'll get the variety you need and enjoy to stay motivated in practice. Hello and welcome to Mentoring with Geraldine and the Bite Size Podcast, and of course me, Geraldine. I'm really excited at the moment, and so I thought I've got to get on. I've got to create a podcast so I can tell everyone how excited I am. So hopefully you're having a really good day, and if you're not having a good day, this podcast will cheer you up and help you out. So on the 23rd, so not that long now, I've got the webinar coming up with the verbal scripts for when you're in practice. And the line, "When I see you next," okay? It's the most basic line in the world, but it's really prompting and it's really inclusive because we want to use inclusive language all the time. And "when I see you next," or "when we meet next," is super inclusive and super encouraging to people to come back. And it can be used in any environment. So if you were in a clothing store and they didn't have your size of something and the lady said, "Well, we get a delivery in on Thursday, so when we see you next, we can have another check for sizes." And you think, "Oh, when will I see you next?" And, "Oh, well, I can't come back until next week." That's okay. There'll be things still from the delivery. There'll be something in your size. "Oh, yeah, I'll come back in next week." And of course, you can use that in clinic. So a nutritionist might turn around and say, "When I see you next, we'll go through, the changes that you've managed to make from this appointment," some of these ones that we've talked about. Some of them you might not be able to achieve because change is hard. And I really understand that. We all live in this hugely busy world. And so then we can go through what worked and what didn't. And so when I see you next, we can make sure that we've covered all these barriers and these problems and developed other ways of working with your diet and with the changes so that, we can really help you out and we can achieve the goals that you're really looking for. So something as simple as "when I see you next," "when we meet next." That's just one of the little lines in the upcoming webinar. And the reason it's so good for everyone is, of course, you can use that in any setting to encourage the person to come back, to make them think, yes, when I see her next, him next, I can do that. I can, if there's a problem, I can ask because we've made it a really inclusive statement. We've encouraged them to come back. And there's lots of verbal scripts and lines like that throughout. That's just one of the many examples. And those that came to the free webinar will know a number of the others. But there's actually a lot more than that. There's a lot more within the new webinar because, of course, the new webinar is all about follow-up. So it's that second, third appointment and how we make sure that we've really got that change happening rather than trying to do it all in the first and second appointment. Because nobody can do it. It's not like when I started out in the business, you'd see people 4 weeks, 6 weeks, because they didn't have all the other clutter in their lives. They just had their life. They didn't have their phone ringing, pinging. They didn't, it was just the TV and it was just the TV stations. So we had computers. Sure, of course we had computers, but we didn't have this huge reliance on this technology and it didn't take us away so much from what we were trying to achieve. So although everything's always been hard, and I totally agree, it doesn't matter how old you are, things are tough all round, all the different ways we do things. But now people have that shorter attention span to change because things are, although they're supposed to be easier, has anyone found tech actually to be that much easier? Probably not all the time. I know I can be found swearing at the computer. I must get myself a swear jar. I'd make so much money off myself. But when we're trying to help our clients to implement that change, then we need this inclusive language and we need these verbal scripts. And there will be more of that within this upcoming webinar on the 23rd, along with how to structure the whole time that you're in there with the client. So that structure is really important. And it doesn't matter what your modality is. It doesn't matter what your business is, because it's inclusive. So it's getting somebody to come back. It's getting somebody to implement the change by the way that you speak, the inclusive language that you use, and by really getting them to think forward, to project forward, to future pace. And we'll talk about future pacing in the webinar itself. And that means that you get this really holistic look at them and their lives and how you can help them. So it doesn't matter what you do, the language of support, the language of change for them and helping them to implement that change. Because at the end of the day, we can give them a long list of recipes. We can give them, all sorts of things we can give them, but it's up to the person to implement them. And if we're not using that right language to support and get them to implement those things, then they'll come back and they'll say, I didn't manage to do anything. I'm really sorry. But my clients will come back and say, I'm really sorry, Geraldine. I didn't do anything. I didn't know whether or not I should cancel the appointment. Because of my inclusive language, they haven't cancelled the appointment. They've come back and so we've been able to go back through it and find out what those barriers were, what those problems were, and change it, realign it, and bring it down. Okay, we were looking to change 3 diets in the week. Let's just start with 1. And then that inclusive language says, when we get to 3, that's fantastic. You can pat yourself on the back, but let's just start at 1. And changes like that, these small incremental changes, are what really support our clients, because life is long, or we hope it's long. And everybody knows to grow a garden takes time. To go on a diet takes time. All the evidence shows us that the best diets are the ones that go on for a really long time. And they've got the research behind them. Obviously, the Mediterranean diet is what you should be eating while you're on those diets. But Weight Watchers has a really good success record because people go back and back and back. They go back all the time. And there's other ones like that where you're constantly being supported and helped. And all of these journeys are support and help. If you're a marathon runner, you don't just become a marathon runner by yourself. You join a club, you have a team, you have a coach or a mentor, or you have other people who are sharing and helping you. But if you're that marathon runner who wants to go to the next step, you find yourself a nutritionist who works within sport to create that diet plan for you. And so these are all flow. And it's all the way of connecting all of these dots for our client. And it can't just be done in 1 or 2 appointments. And as a client, that needs to be understood. And of course, that language will be, and how to do that and how to explain that will all be in that webinar. So I'm writing the workbook at the moment, which is why I was so excited and why I had to share with you. Because when I write, like I write for the academy, I make sure that all the information is there. And it takes me a little while to sit down and do it. But I've talked to you before about bulking things and making sure that you're sitting down and you've got the time and that's the only thing you're doing. And so it's really when I sit down and, okay, I've got the time. I'm going to sit down now. I've got the hour and a half, 2 hours, and I'm going to pump this stuff out. And I just get so excited by it and I get dragged into it and I create more. And it's just wonderful knowing that you're out there and that you want this and that you've been asking for this. And 640 people wanting that first webinar shows me that there is a true need here for more of this information. And that's what I'm here to share with you. So pop over to the website, geraldineheadley.podia.com. And there you will find on the top, you'll find the link to join up so that you can be on the next webinar. It's all recorded. If you can't be there on the night, don't worry. It will all be recorded. Just book in and get your place. And as always, there's a winner if you stay to the end. And what I did on the last one, I actually had a winner also out of the people who watched it afterwards. So there will be, that way you'll get on and do it. I encourage people, they've got a time limit, and then we can have a second winner. So I'm really, really looking forward to the 23rd, and chances are I'll be back to talk about it again as I do some more work towards it. And as I think to myself, I could just share that on the podcast now. I could go and share that. They need this information. So I'm really, really looking forward to sharing with you all on the 23rd. And don't forget to book in and get that ticket because there are limited places. It's Zoom. And there's Zoom, there's a limit on the number in the room. So I will have to, I need to know who's coming so that I can get enough space for everyone. So book yourself in, book that place and make sure that you're one of the ones who's got that seat. So really looking forward to seeing you then. I hope you have an absolutely brilliant rest of the week. And don't forget to do all the things like subscribe and give me 5 stars, preferably. Actually, just give me 5 stars. If you don't want to give me 5 stars, don't listen. But you've stayed all the way to the end. So chances are you're liking what you're hearing. And I really look forward to connecting with you. And I'd love you to connect with me. So I'll catch you soon. Bye. Thanks so much for joining me today. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast for the weekly episodes. If you'd like even more support and learning, then the Academy is for you. Here you'll find part 2 of the herbal discussions, more clinical learning, and case studies to support your clients in practice. Bye for now.